Welcome back, everybody, to the show. I hope you're doing well. We begin with something very strange and kind of more fun, but also my reaction was, not so fast, Lara Trump. And that is the clip that I'm going to play for you. Thank you to all of you joining live or watching this back wherever and whenever you are. This was on the Pod Force One podcast with one of our favorites, Miranda Devine. Is her trademark response. And Lara Trump gets asked about the Obama remark that aliens are real, that he later clarified to mean statistically, but he's not claiming that he saw something that we haven't seen as it pertains to other life in the universe. And so then Lara Trump just casually leaks that she thinks she remembers being told something about this topic by her father-in-law, Donald Trump. Now, you might be thinking, ooh, this might be interesting. No, I want this to be called out for what it is. Oh, now you want to talk about aliens, Lara? This feels a little bit like the Dows at 50 thou. That's what this feels a little bit like. So now you want to talk about Epstein when the aliens are real? Oh, okay.
Podcast that you've discussed with the president is UFOs. Do you think that he's about to make an announcement about UFOs? Because President Obama was just on a podcast talking about how he believes in UFOs and hinting that he saw something when he was president.
Well, I said this in my podcast too. What's funny is we've kind of asked my father-in-law about this because we're like, well, what do you know? Because Miranda, we all want to know about the UFOs, or we all want to know what's going on. And he played a little coy with us. And so that, of course, led us to believe, Eric and I were like, oh my gosh, if he won't even like fully tell us, maybe there's more to it. And then I have just heard kind of around that, I think he's actually said, I think my father-in-law's actually said it, that there is some speech that he has that I guess at the right time, and I don't know when the right time is, he's going to break out and talk about, and it has to do with maybe some sort of extraterrestrial life, so to speak. I'll
play a little bit more of this in a second, but you know how Sean Ryan yesterday went, and then all of a sudden he tries to pull Obama into the Epstein distraction narrative, which there's plenty of reasons to call out people for distracting from Trump's administration woes, and specifically with Epstein or other things they would want to distract from. Obama's not playing a role in that, I can tell you, trying to distract from Trump's disaster here by making a statement about aliens, but Sean Ryan pulled that in. To follow that thread, this feels a lot more like what Sean Ryan was seeing Obama doing than anything. Can you imagine if it was right now when Trump went, tonight I'm delivering a primetime address in the Oval Office and announcing that there is indeed otherworldly life? Interesting timing. That would be very interesting timing. And he'd have a lot of reasons to have our eye on something else. He's even right now, we're going to get to the next segment, talking about war or more war with Iran. His poll numbers are just plummeting. Yes, you have the Epstein scandal. His MAGA base, as we examined in depth yesterday, is fracturing like we've barely ever seen before, if ever. Maybe this is the time when he announces the truth about the aliens.
Just, I look at things from the perspective of the vastness of our universe. And I'm a kind of a numbers person. I don't get nervous flying because the odds are very much in your favor flying. The odds that anything will happen to you are far greater in a car than they ever will be in an airplane. But I'm also looking at the odds in terms of how much is out there in the universe. And it would.
That was such a weird way to say that you look at the numbers. Yeah. I'm such a numbers person. Have you ever heard this stat? You're safer in an airplane than a car. Have you ever heard that? Yes, Lara, we've heard that. Wow.
Be pretty wild to think that the only spot where there was any sort of life in the entire universe was here on Earth. So I don't have any information. I feel like there might be information out there, and hopefully it's going to be able to be told to all of us very soon. We'll see.
So she just casually says, let's see if Miranda has a follow-up, because Brian Tyler Cohen got so much crap for not asking a follow-up question to Obama when he said it. Let's see if Miranda has a follow-up question for Laura casually mentioning that Trump already has a speech written making some sort of announcement on UFOs, UAPs, otherworldly life, etc. Let's see.
So does the president act as if he believes there are UFOs and that this is going to be some momentous announcement, or is it just, a casual observation that there might be something out there?
It's a good question. I mean, he's kind of been very cool about it. Whenever I've heard this come up about this possible speech, and when Eric asked him,
so that's kind of a follow-up question, but not about the speech.
He knowing him as well as I do, the way he says things, they make a difference sometimes. And he's been a little different about this one. So it makes me personally think that there's something that he knows that the rest of us don't know. And so I'll let people determine for themselves whatever that means. But yeah, it makes me think there's more to come.
Very interesting.
Very interesting indeed. You know what this reminded? Okay, wait. Everyone hold, please, because let me just say something like a dog died like a dog. Let's see if we can find this clip of Trump right here. If there is some cover-up within the government of what they really know about extraterrestrial life, nailed it. About quote unquote aliens. That one gets stuck into my mouth. I don't know why. About something in that category of what the flying object, blah, 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 blah. Something that I'm very uninterested in, but some of you are, and I try to be interested sometimes. If there's been a cover up and a president is going to announce it to us, I just don't want it to be Trump. I do not want to find out about something that big, a big announcement about the universe, and actually we've come into contact and been able to examine the body of an alien. I do not want it to be Donald Trump who breaks that news to us in this sort of way.
He died like a dog. He died like a coward. He was whimpering, screaming, and crying. And frankly, I think it's something that should be brought out so that his followers and all of these young kids that want to leave various countries, including the United States, they should see how he died. He didn't die a hero. He died a coward, crying, whimpering, screaming, and bringing 3 kids with him to die.
Baghdadi, die like a dog. That's when he announced when we killed somebody. And, this is it.
Last night was a great night for the United States and for the world. A brutal killer, one who has caused so much hardship and death, has violently been eliminated. He will never again harm another innocent man, woman, or child. He died like a dog. He died like a coward.
Yeah, there it is. So I don't want it to be that guy explaining it to us, especially not whenever he has so many reasons to break big news that aren't about his own failures. So I guess my point is not so fast, Laura. And then his actual daughter, Ivanka, I saw posted something, and this just felt so out of whack. So this is how I picture it. Picture you're in a room and 2 people are fighting and they're punching each other. One person's over in the corner just screaming. Someone's over there like bashing their head against the wall. And then a bunch of people in the middle are just screaming at each other. And then there's one person standing in the middle, like high out of their mind, just laughing and saying meaningless, happy thoughts. And you're like, something's off about this environment. That's Ivanka Trump right now. Her dad's bringing chaos upon the country and the world. We're all in this state of panic. And then she posts like, happy new lunar cycle, baby. Today, a new lunar cycle begins, she writes. The year of the fire horse calls us to courage, to energy, to intention, and to fearless creation. It is a year for bold ideas, decisive action, and turning vision into something enduring. I'm stepping into it with clarity and conviction, ready to bring forward projects I've been quietly nurturing, ideas nearly ready to meet the light. I cannot wait to share them with you. Forward with strength, with gratitude, with purpose, excited for what is ahead. Happy Lunar New Year. What? Why does she get to live her best life? And then she does, for some reason, the Lunar New Year cycle, New Year thing is a moment for her to share her latest headshot, her latest nice photograph. Why does she get to live her best life? This is so weird. And I'm not saying anything ill towards, I don't want anyone to do anything. I'm just saying, I guess, go live life, you and Jared. But it's all very strange, her vibe. It's like when she did that Lex Fridman interview, and it was just off. It feels like you're talking to the daughter of someone else. And she acts like her dad isn't who he is. All very bizarre. Before getting to some very frightening breaking news about war, I just want to say again, thank you all so much for joining us. If you're watching live or watching back whenever. And if you become a member by clicking the join button on YouTube, I'll read out your name while we're still live. If you leave a super chat, etc., all of those good things. We now have reporting that the chance of the U.S. once again going to war with Iran is very high. And this is kind of an underreported story at this point in time. At least on this show, we haven't been talking about this. But you kind of knew it wasn't going to end when Trump said that it ended originally. We did those big strikes. He said that we completely eliminated their nuclear program. And so, conversation done. What was I saying at the time? Doesn't feel like the conversation's done. Doesn't feel like y'all are being completely honest about the status of that operation. And look at this. Trump advisor warns 90% chance strike on Iran happens in coming weeks. The boss is getting fed up, is the quote. You have Mike Allen from Axios. The chance of war with Iran is higher than most Americans realize. Chance of a deal is small. This would be more of a war than an operation. Then referencing Venezuela, saying this will be more of a drawn out war than the initial strikes on Iran and then what happened with Venezuela. But again, as we listen, and I'll show you JD Vance speaking to this, of what their justification will be. You think back to the total obliteration. You remember total obliteration? How many times they told us the nuclear program was totally obliterated? And now they're telling us if they don't get a deal with Iran on that topic, we'll have to go to war? Or that might be an option? But, so, to backtrack for a second, you withdrew from the nuclear agreement that Obama struck. Mainly, it seems because Trump just hated that Obama got this accomplishment. Now you're saying we're looking for a diplomatic solution, but it's somehow going to be way better than Obama's. But actually, it's probably not going to work, and we're probably just going to have to use the military to do something that we said we already did. And as we go through this segment, of course, I want to specify, just like when we talk about Venezuela or any of the other of these cases, Trump irresponsibly pulling us into a war that could have catastrophic consequences is not the same thing as I will read you some of these posts from the Iranian supreme leader as hyping up or whitewashing the legacy or actions of the Iranian regime. Horrific atrocities, especially in recent months that we've seen against anti-regime protesters, have been perpetrated by the Iranian regime. And they're horrible, this leadership. And at the same time, Trump can also be acting irrationally with his decision-making. Let's watch JD Vance explain what's going on here, and then I'll show you what the supreme leader was shitposting on Twitter about.
Well, I'm obviously not going to make any announcements today. I think the president has a lot of options. We do have a very powerful military. The president's shown a willingness to use it. He also has a remarkable diplomatic team. He's shown a willingness to use that, too. And so what the president has been very clear with the Iranians, and actually I just talked to Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner this morning about some of their negotiations, is the United States has certain red lines. Our primary interest first here is we don't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon. We don't want nuclear proliferation. If Iran gets a nuclear weapon, there are a lot of other regimes, some friendly, some not so friendly, who would get nuclear weapons after them. That would be a disaster for the American people, because then you have these crazy regimes all over the world with the most dangerous weapons in the world. And that's one of the things the president has said he's going to prevent. Now, we would very much like, as the president has said, to resolve this through a conversation and a diplomatic negotiation. But the president has all options on the table. And, one thing about the negotiation I will say this morning is, in some ways it went well. They agreed to meet afterwards. But in other ways, it was very clear that the president has set some red lines that the Iranians are not yet willing to actually acknowledge and work through. So we're going to keep on working it. But of course, the president reserves the ability to say when he thinks that diplomacy has reached its natural end. We hope we don't get to that point. But if we do, that'll be the president's call.
Yeah, and apparently, according to now numerous reports, you have this looking more and more imminent. Trump's armada has grown to include 2 aircraft carriers, a dozen warships, hundreds of fighter jets, and multiple air defense systems. Some of that firepower is still on its way to the region, and then it gives specifics, but a bunch of resources are being flooded as if to prepare for military action, which is a frightening prospect. Then this is what we're looking at next, which is Khamenei, the Iranian leader, is out on Twitter being like, oh yeah, you want to go to war? We're going to beat the shit out of you, which is unwise, which is lunatic talk. And I'll show you that in a second. But The Hill has this reporting: Iran's supreme leader threatens to sink U.S. warships as nuclear talks continue. Doesn't feel like a great sign for the nuclear talks when Trump's on one end, like, we would crush you, and the other leaders on the other end, like, well, we would crush you. Hey, but I hope our officials make progress on that negotiation. This stark warning comes as officials from both the U.S. and Iran met for a second round of discussions about Iran's nuclear program in Geneva on Tuesday. U.S. representatives are pushing for a new deal with the country after the first Trump administration withdrew from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, an Obama-era nuclear deal that placed limits on Iran's enrichment of uranium in exchange for sanctions relief. But now Trump's trying to make a deal of his own, and if that doesn't come together, we could see catastrophic consequences. So then here's a part of this age that we're in, is that world leaders, even extremely oppressive authoritarian world leaders, are just out on Twitter like any other person, and you can comment on her and be like, hey, shut up, dude, and maybe he'll see it. Like, what? And then Khamenei could respond to a Trump post, and they could get into a Twitter battle as we're talking about nuclear weapon negotiations. Weird world that we're in. But he posted, the U.S. president keeps saying that they have the strongest military force in the world. The strongest military force in the world may at times be struck so hard that it cannot get up again. So as I said with Maduro, cut it out. Maduro, I said that. I called him. I said, Maduro, you can't be, I said, not a fan, brother, can't be going, be happy after you said you're going to smash in the teeth of the American regime. That does not mean that I'm projecting rationality onto our president. But trust me, you're not going to make it better with the very unstable man we have by challenging him like this. And then Maduro didn't listen, didn't work out well, which I also didn't think that was a wise operation by Trump, but it was obviously for oil, and that's completely deranged. And it then came out in reporting that Trump saw the videos of Maduro mocking him, and that's a part of why he gave the green light to the operation. We have too many unstable leaders in this world, to different degrees and to different consequences, and now they're just crap posting on each other on Twitter, and that can lead to war. It doesn't make me feel good at all. And he kept going. He was doing like a Trump-style Twitter meltdown. The Iranian supreme leader. Everything we had ever heard about their corruption is one thing. This affair of that morally corrupt island is another altogether. Oh no, he's talking about Epstein's Island. These are indicative of what Western civilization and liberal democracy are. They are perceived for 200, 300 years, and this is the ultimate outcome. Again, this is what's weird. Is it's like, hey. Epstein Island, Terrible. Trump is really corrupt. You're really corrupt, Khomeini. So you don't get to talk about this. And what are you talking about, liberal democracy? How this is indicative of liberal democracy? Stop it. You want to go through the list of abuses because of authoritarian regimes against women and children and people in general? Then you have Khomeini saying the Americans say, let's negotiate over your nuclear energy. And the result of the negotiation is supposed to be that you do not have this energy. Yeah, kind of. Then he says this island. And the only reason I'm laughing is because of how absurd this scenario is, where everyone has a Twitter account. And I'm sure there's people under it like, get it, Big K, you know, like, get it. This island of corruption is only one example. There's much more of this. Just as this was not apparent and they became exposed, there are many other things that will soon come to light. Yeah. Another, the fact that nuclear energy is our undeniable right has been also included in the guidelines of the International Atomic Energy Agency. That is, all countries have the right to own nuclear enrichment installations. This is among a nation's rights. Why does the U.S. interfere? Well, you are a very dangerous and oppressive and aggressive and unstable leader and regime. So it makes sense we wouldn't want you to have nuclear weapons. And that's what this has to do with. And that's why a diplomatic solution, as we saw Obama was able to secure, is the best option here. Bombing our way out of this, given our history in doing that, whether it be with regime changes or here specifically with nuclear weapons, doesn't feel like the way out. When we look at the disturbing atrocities committed by this leadership in Iran, by this government in Iran, the U.S. coming in and trying to bomb them out of power, again, seems very dangerous and not to be the proper solution. That doesn't mean we don't do international cooperation to try to put pressure on the Iranian regime, on nuclear weapons, or on the killings of their own people who are speaking out against the oppression of this regime. We should be working to uplift the values that many Iranian protesters are embodying that are much closer to our values. But Trump seems to just want a big show of force again. And they told us last time they had already solved the nuclear problem with the strike, and now they're proving to us they were lying. Because remember, take this down for a second. You just saw in that J.D. Vance video him talking about nuclear weapons. Look at this post back from June 25th, 2025. Iran's nuclear facilities have been obliterated. And suggestions otherwise are fake news. So is J.D. Vance doing fake news? Because he's saying clearly they haven't. Excuse me. And then you have like hype videos being posted of Khomeini threatening the U.S. The strongest military force in the world may be struck so hard that it cannot get up again. We're doing TikTok edits. We're doing epic TikTok edits about matters of war now. That's the situation that we're in. And you know Trump's going to see one of these, and that's going to push him over the edge because of his decision-making issues. Stop. I don't know why. I know it's because they're trying to show off to their own followers and show strength, and that's what authoritarians do, but doesn't feel like a good ending is going to come of this story. The Americans constantly say that, okay, that they've sent a warship toward Iran. Of course, a warship is a dangerous piece of military hardware. However, more dangerous than the warship is the weapon that can send that warship to the bottom of the sea. Do y'all understand the nuance I'm going with here? I'm criticizing Trump's warmongering, and we've seen that now after he coined himself the peace president in multiple instances. He's making long lists of countries that he wants to overthrow regimes in. Doesn't work. Okay, so that stands. And also, last time we struck Iran, they responded by warning, if I'm not mistaken, Qatar ahead of time so we would know which base they were going to try to strike, and then we intercepted all of the missiles. Like the point is they didn't really do it. They just did a show of like, oh, we responded. They didn't do anything. Stop with this. We would destroy the American empire. It's only going to make it worse. We're just escalating. Because you have people on both sides of this chest beating who care more about their appearance of strength than actual peace. Now, remember, Trump posted way back in 2013, remember that I predicted a long time ago that President Obama will attack Iran because of his inability to negotiate properly, not skilled. That feels like it applies right now perfectly to Trump. And he's the one who pulled us out of the deal that actually was working, despite a lot of right-wing propaganda. It actually was working, preventing the development of nuclear weapons in Iran without us having to use our military, risk calamity through some sort of military operation. Plus, is Congress just going to sit and let Trump make whatever choice he wants with war without ever using what is supposed to be their power to approve of that? All right, before moving forward, Intuition Jen sent 5 gifted memberships. Appreciate that. Emulus Rex, it sounds like Trump's starting more wars so he can take credit for ending them. Are we winning yet? Yeah, that's a good point. He took, you know how he made the list of wars he ended? He said the war between us, Iran, and Israel, he ended. Because we did some strikes against their nuclear facilities, and then he, right after striking, went, congratulations, world. We now do peace. Which is like one of the wildest things to do in war, is to do your first strike in a war and then go, all right, congrats, you now get peace, brother. It's like that. You like punch someone and then go, okay, we both got some good shots in. Let's call it a day. It does feel like that. It does feel that Trump is going to say he ended the war in Venezuela. Wait, didn't you start that? Or here too. So I hope and pray whatever that means. I really do wish that the Iranian people could be freed of the oppressive regime they live under right now. And that's very serious. Some of this, I made more lighthearted. That's very serious. And if history, American interventionist history, has taught us anything, it's that us just trying to bomb ourselves to that better future for the Iranian people is not the path. And that's my actual serious take on the whole thing. Alrighty. Ignomatic Eliza became a member by clicking the join button. Thank you so much. I'm going to try for the interest of the audience to do less audience engagement until the end. But then stick around for the end. I'll do more there. For sure. The Trump brothers are so corrupt. Donald Trump is so corrupt. It makes me nauseous. And I didn't think I could get more nauseous thinking about how contradictory their actions now are to what they try to criticize the Bidens for, and the way that the defenders of Trump just completely play dumb and act like they don't see the most corrupt administration in American history. But then I can get more nauseous when I see this photo. No. Oh my gosh. They are right out of a TV show about Nepo babies. This is the physical embodiment, those photos of Nepo babies. Hey, Dad, can I get an office? I don't do it. Okay. Yeah. Hey, Dad, Kimberly Guilfoyle got kind of annoying. Can I have a new girlfriend? As Don Jr. probably said. And so point is, I got more nauseous because I saw them try to justify the corruption in an interview, and that's what I want to play for you now. Crashed and burned, but let's watch.
I want to ask you about, the World Liberty Corporation, which has been in the news, and there was this big Wall Street Journal report about the 49% stake that was sold to an Emirati royal family member after your father was elected president, raising questions about whether they were doing that so they could get access to AI chips.
A, my father has nothing to do with. B, it has nothing to do with AI chips.
Stop there. Stop. He said like 5 words and he already lied. This is going to take a long time to get through. You will eventually see this entire clip. I'm sorry. Your dad has nothing to do with it. Really?
Bullshit.
What about the billions of dollars of increase in his net worth? You don't think he cares about that? Someone who notoriously would track his net worth because he wanted to be on lists of richest people? Who would lie about his net worth so that he could overinflate it? You think he doesn't know it went up billions because of your business ventures? Oh, okay.
Elected president raising questions about whether they were doing that so they could get access to AI chips.
A, my father has nothing to do with. B, it has nothing to do with AI chips. And C, we met in the Middle East the first time.
Yes.
There's not a person in that room, there's not a banker, there's not a fund manager that doesn't go to the Middle East and to the, whether the sovereign wealth funds of the world. They're some of the biggest investors in every fund in America. To critique the one here and not talk about the others would be nonsense. It's literally what they do. And so they have done that. They invested in it, and they've actually had already over a 4x return on their investment. It's a great investment and has nothing to do with the other. We've been dealing with the conflict of interest stuff for years. I mean, they tried all this nonsense the first time around. Frankly, it's gotten old. They were the ones that put us into this position by creating legislation to try to put us out of business. We just fought back. We weren't willing to sit in the corner, curl up in a ball and die like they would love us to do. That's not how we function. That's not how we operate. And you can see that whether it's my father or us.
So far you're thinking, what are you even saying? You're saying so many words, they don't mean anything. You're just rambling. Oh, we've been hurt so bad. Watch this next part of his answer because it shows you just how guilty he knows he is. So he starts off by saying, my dad has nothing to do with this. Oh, except for the direct stake your dad has in all this and the money that he gets from it, which is the main reason that we're upset, because then whenever he gets a bunch of money, he's going to think, how did I get all of this money? Oh, maybe it was the people who are asking me for something, and right after they gave me a bunch of money, I gave them the thing they wanted with the advanced computer chips. That's an obvious through line, and you would be freaking about that if it were Biden or if it were Obama. So that part, already lying, we already don't trust him. Then the rest of the answer, he just starts talking about how much of a victim they were, and everyone was mean to us, and it was so hard, and I'm getting tired. We've been dealing with this conflict of interest stuff for so long. Oh, I wonder why you're dealing with the conflict of interest stuff so long. Because you keep making conflicts of interest. Oh, it's getting kind of tired how many people call us corrupt. Oh, it's getting exhausting for us to keep calling you corrupt because of how corrupt you are.
To do. That's not how we function. That's not how we operate. And you can see that whether it's my father or us, that's never going to happen. We're going to do what we need to do to fight back.
Right?
It's a crazy law of unintended consequences. If you look at what they tried to do when they threw my father off of Twitter, and they did the same to Don and myself and pretty much everybody else in our family. They took us off of Twitter. They took us off of Facebook. They took us off of Instagram. They took us off of YouTube. They took us off of Google. They skewed all the searches. They did everything they could to suppress. So guess what we did? We went out and we formed Truth Social. Then not too long after that, all the banks, they started canceling us left and right, every single one of them. Every single one of the big banks. They started canceling us. Guess what we did?
You don't have a right to do business with a particular business. Sorry. They're not obligated to do business with you. You're not a victim. Maybe they saw how much fraud you engaged in and how irresponsible your dad was in business and just didn't want to keep having financial relationships with you.
We went out and we got into DeFi because we realized it was the future of finance. And the great irony is half of the very executives that called us back in those days to cancel us are actually in this room right now. It is a law of unintended consequences. And I think, for a long time they fought it. And I think at this point they realize they can't fight it. The train has left the station. This is happening worldwide. The whole world is adopting crypto in a very, very big, fast manner. And they'd much rather be on the side of something that's clearly the future.
None of this answers the question. It would be very questionable if the brothers or the sons of Donald Trump were going around making a lot of money, and then the people who handed them a bunch of money were getting good deals or administration policy changes from the Trump administration. That already would be corrupt. But they act as if Trump's not directly making money himself from this. And so with that, you don't really, whatever this mumbo jumbo you just said was, and whenever Twitter, they kicked us off, and Instagram, we went and made Truth Social. What does this have to do with the fact that you're trading favors for money? What does this have to do with I saw Don Jr. make a video where his chest was protruding like a couple of, put it up please, like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, like two Leaning Towers of Pisa. And he was in a video calling the Biden family, the Biden crime family, the most corrupt family, because Hunter Biden did business dealings and then they never connected any action of Joe Biden that impacted them. And That was corruption. But then now you're saying you really can't even understand why people are concerned when your dad's actually the one being funneled cash from the same people he's been making decisions on. Yeah, no, you know it. That's why you have to say a bunch of meaningless mumbo jumbo and humiliate yourself. And we just gotta get into crypto. You didn't have to make a meme coin for people to funnel you a bunch of money. That doesn't make any sense when they repeat that over and over and over.
Exciting.
Well, you know what the critics would say. They'd say that the credibility factor is the Trump name and the Trump White House, and that everyone, is here to curry favor.
I think the great irony is they didn't give us much of a choice. When you had
they created this monster.
When you had every big bank in the world for doing nothing wrong, just based on the fact that we all wore a hat that said "Make America Great Again." My father happened to be running as a Republican, canceled us. I mean, I was getting these calls: 300 bank accounts, Capital One, in the middle of the night. These are commercial buildings, residential buildings, golf courses, are around the world. These aren't political entities, and they were pulling these accounts from us like we were absolute dogs. We couldn't pay our vendors, we couldn't pay employees, and so we said, listen, there has to be a better way.
So then you set up a mechanism whereby purchasing Trump's cryptocurrency, people can pay him directly. Foreign governments, foreign leaders, untracked numbers of dollars. That you had to do because Capital One canceled you. What? So then, friend of the show, Josiah, said, this alone is literally far more corrupt than everything ever alleged about the Bidens. Eric's drone company is doing business with the U.S. military led by his effing father. Oh, dang it, I grabbed the wrong one. This is also a good point about the next clip that we're going to get to. But he said something to the effect of, it's okay. Like, they admitted they're doing the corrupt thing, but they're just saying it's our fault they're doing it because we were so mean to them and they got so canceled that they had to go milk their father's position. Some nice whole milk. Whole with a W. Whole, as Trump said, had to milk the White House for as much money as possible. Okay, so then you think, I've been hearing a lot about this UAE leader making that huge investment, then getting the benefits they wanted from the Trump White House. That's corrupt. But is that all you got, Luke? Okay, you also told us about the cryptocurrency and how people are purchasing that, and then they're getting dinners with Trump, and then he's able to do favors. Or, okay, you told us about the Binance founder and him getting a pardon after investing in the company. But is there anything else? Yes, we have another story of either Hunter or not Hunter, either Don or Eric investing in a drone company that does business with the Pentagon. Yes, Trump's Pentagon. So now when making decisions about which company should we do a new big contract for with drones, maybe or maybe not, the fact that Trump's family has money to gain if one of the companies gets the big purchase will influence. In a November press release announcing a contract with the Pentagon, Xtend said its no way drone kits would be specifically built for small tactical teams in irregular warfare operations. That business could soon grow. The Defense Department this month named Xtend as one of top 25 companies invited to participate in the first phase of its drone dominance program, a procurement push ultimately slashed to reach $1.1 billion. That's the Trump Pentagon with Pete Hegseth. And
no more dudes in dresses.
And you have this big investment. Let's see his answer on that.
So now we talk crypto. I just, in the final moments, want to ask about some of the other interesting business ventures, because there was big news yesterday about your investment in an Israeli drone company, for instance. What was this? What's the story there? And again, you'll have the same questions about, they're dependent on the Pentagon.
Well, for so long, they canceled us from getting drones, so we had to invest in a drone company.
they canceled us.
Gone for sales and regulation.
Listen, I think at the end of the day, we invest in a lot of things that we believe in. Right? If anybody doesn't believe that drones is, the wave of the future, they're silly. Their eyes aren't open. And so I think there's tremendous drone technology. And listen, we've been investors our entire lives. We put money into ventures. That's what I did in a company that I believe in, and I'm really excited about it. I think it's great. And then we have the greatest real estate portfolio in the world. I think right before.
Yeah. So then this is where Josiah said, this alone is literally far more corrupt than everything ever alleged about the Bidens. Eric's drone companies doing business with the U.S. military led by his effing father. Replace Eric with Hunter and Trump with Biden. Imagine the shitstorm that would ensue. Just that, but that's like down the list. That's just, oh, here's another example. And we're talking about billions flowing, not small thousands, which they tried to connect. And, they don't even have a defense, which is the crazy part. I thought they were going to think of something. Well, we've set up an arrangement with our father where he doesn't know anything about his own finances until after he gets out of office. And so we actually just do business for the good of our family, but he is not allowed to know what we're doing. Yeah, here's Josiah's other post. LMAO Trump's sons don't deny that they're corruptly cashing in on their dad's presidency. They simply insist their critics give us critics give us much of a choice. Maybe don't give us much of a choice. How effing stupid and shameless is this timeline? Yeah, they're just admitting it. And that's my point about why this is so shocking, is that they haven't thought of a way to even lie their way out of how corrupt this is. Ugh. Victoria said, I miss your live show, Luke. Good to see you again. Miss no further. Tori Walton said, this isn't really related to the content of this episode, but are you aware of the Necessary Conversation podcast? Would you be willing to guest star? Of course. I don't know. I'm not aware of it, but I'd be happy to guest star. I guess I should know what it is. I go look it up and it's like a neo-Nazi podcast. Will you be a guest star? No, but if it's normal, then yeah, I'm always happy to appear on other platforms. We now have a shocking leak inside of a room that Lindsey Graham was in, being a total lunatic. And it kind of feels like Trump and his allies are on a mission to make sure that no one in the world likes us anymore. We spent decades building up goodwill with our allies, and it actually comes in handy. When the U.S. calls, yeah, it's a lot because of our power, but we also have a lot of goodwill. People listen. We can get stuff we want. And we can make the deals we want. And we can tell you, no, don't get too intertwined with that country. And hey. We can do a lot of hey. And it feels like the Trump administration is trying to destroy all that goodwill in one term. And you see that in bigger ways. Trump alienating our allies through all of his trade policy and through his cozying up to adversaries at the expense of allies, and the way that he degrades people who align a lot more with our values, but praises people who don't. But then there's smaller ways, like whenever you send Lindsey Graham into a meeting with the Prime Minister of Denmark, and I'm pretty sure the Greenland Prime Minister, to chat Greenland, or Iceland as Trump called it, and then you have Lindsey, who supposedly is represented in the United States, just being a complete and total dick. No one likes us anymore, guys. So before I tell you about that story, here was Lindsey already publicly upsetting a lot of our allies on the subject of Greenland.
Is to get outcomes.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit who owns Greenland? I don't. So the point is, Greenland is going to be more fortified, right, because Donald Trump.
Can I answer the question? Who gives a shit who owns Greenland? Denmark is my first guess. Maybe whoever owns it right now, maybe they care. Oh, maybe the people of Greenland care. Yeah, I think so. And don't you tell me about fortification. Don't you tell me about fortification. You know nothing about fortification. I know everything about fortification. We can fortify the hell out of Greenland. They're fine with that. We already do. We already have military presence there. They're our ally. That's the point. So you treating them with disdain and who gives a shit, and then Trump saying it's ours, maybe we'll use our military to take it, is so destructive to the trust that we have cultivated. Then you have this story. Trump allies, talking about Lindsey Graham, disturbing insult to female leader revealed. Lots of F-bombs is the subheading. Lindsey Graham reportedly tried but failed to get a rise out of the Danish prime minister. Yeah, so as you're going to see through this, I hate to use this phrase, but the Danish prime minister mogged Lindsey Graham. That's a Danish term. You might not know about it, but it's a little Danish term I picked up when I went there. A mog. And she did it to Lindsey. Because what did he want? He wanted a fight. As you're going to see. And she just went, When you're done, we can continue. Oh, so good. Lindsey Graham has been accused of derailing a diplomatic meeting in Munich with an what was the way that someone recently pronounced it? Expletive-laden rant and sexist insult leveled at Denmark's prime minister. The close ally of President Donald Trump himself, no stranger to vicious verbal attacks against women, is said to have called Mette Frederiksen little lady as he looked her straight in the eye and sneered during the exchange at a Munich hotel on Saturday, according to a Danish newspaper. Little lady. I wish, and I say this as someone who never promotes political violence, I wish she had kicked him in the crotch. Because I feel like you would have had to have, this was in Munich, I feel like you could have gotten away with it too. Because everyone in that room kind of wants to see Lindsey Graham get kicked in the crotch. And especially if it's after you call a prime minister little lady, you deserve it at that point. Graham had been meeting with Frederiksen to discuss Trump's threats earlier this year to annex Greenland. Also in attendance at the meeting, held on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference, were several members of the House and Senate, along with Greenlandic Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen. Puck first broke news of Graham's foul-mouthed meltdown Monday. Sources with knowledge of the conversation said he was combative and that he threw around lots of F-bombs, with one person adding, "Picture Graham on his worst day on TV. He was like this."
I want sanctuary city policy to end.
You can picture Lindsey Graham coming out to the meeting with a glass of something. He's in Munich. He's all sweaty, and you see like two dudes, big muscular German dudes, walking out of his hotel room. He's like, "All right, I'm ready for the meeting. Come here, little lady." Who gives a shit about Greenland? Okay. I was in the middle of the best orgasm of my life, and you pull me down here to talk about Greenland. Who gives a shit, little lady? My mama told me I was going to be great, and I became a senator, and she's still ashamed that I share her name. You ever thought of that, little lady? It's like, button your shirt, Lindsay. Sorry, everyone. The mic covered most of my shirt being unbuttoned. I know. You're like, no. Others described it as shocking, disturbing, and extremely inappropriate. One attendee told the newspaper Grant had also targeted Greenland's leader, Nielsen. So he's taken on two different women, having yawned directly in his face in a way that could only be perceived as mocking. Oh, wait, Nielsen's a guy. Never mind. Jens is a guy. I was picturing like Jin. Jins is okay. So then he yawned in the Prime Minister of Greenland's face. Prior to the outburst, Graham had reportedly boasted about Trump having enormous power as the American president. I hate when defenders of Trump and fans of him, and Graham does this a lot, go like, Trump is the president of the United States of America. He's so powerful, and he has the nuclear codes. It's like, yeah, yep, that's the president. You don't have to go. I think it actually diminishes the power of the presidency or the perceived awe when you have to keep explaining it. People know we're the United States of freaking America. Yeah, that's pretty cool. The presidency, pretty cool. He's pretty powerful. Having to repeat it makes you seem very, very insecure. Frederiksen is understood to have calmly waited until Graham had finished. So he's swearing, he's saying little lady, his shirt is slowly falling off of him, and he's grumpy and he's drunk. I'm adding some extra descriptors that weren't in this reporting. And when he finished his outburst, Frederiksen said, "When you're done with that, the meeting can continue." That's good. That's how you deal with someone like that, because he feels like he failed to get a rise out of her. And I admire that for sure. That's how you deal with someone who's losing their mind unjustly. And it just makes me sad because I think we're getting a really bad name. Like Trump, they're probably like, oh, yay, we don't have to meet with Trump today about Greenland. He probably would be really disrespectful and alienating of our stance on this. And they send in Lindsey Graham and then he's acting this way. America is at its best something so epic. And I'm so proud to be American, but it breaks my heart that the leaders going around the world at these international conferences representing who we are doing so in big ways and then here in smaller ways in just sort of a trashy, low character fashion. And if anyone's a little lady, it's Lindsey Graham. That needs to be said.
Gotta get his balls back.
Well, Frederickson kicked them off, and that's where they went in my fantasy. Tori Walton, Boga Magazine said, yes, please go on necessary conversation. Mickey C. Magic became a member by clicking the join button below or the join button on YouTube. Someone right above that said, is Luke wearing lipstick? No. What? I just put on chapstick. Like it's just a little chapstick, a little aquifer. But if you're saying that they're nice and lush and red, then I appreciate that. You didn't put that, but if you're saying that, I appreciate it. Intuition Jen sent 5 gifted memberships. How many memberships do you have to give? It's too good. Pretty soon, half of our membership audience is going to be people that Intuition Jen gave memberships to. That's so kind. Germs Rosalino became a member as well by clicking the join button on YouTube. A story from a couple days ago that made a lot of news was AOC being asked about what the U.S. response would be to aggression by China against Taiwan. And you could just say AOC flubbed her answer. It happens. But what was interesting was Abby Phillip took this as an opportunity to go, okay, MAGA is acting like because she gave a bad answer or took a second to get to a good answer, had a lot of, took a moment for her to, which you could describe as a bad answer rhetorically. That proves she doesn't know what she's talking about on anything. This is the MAGA argument. That proves she doesn't know what she's talking about. She could never be in higher leadership. What a disgrace and a dummy. That's the MAGA argument. But then you think to yourself, you go, okay, so bad answer. I'll play it for you. Awkward. If that's the standard for intelligence in politics, what the hell do they think about Trump when he tries to speak on almost any topic ever?
Well,
and you go, that's whataboutism. I'm telling you what I believe about the AOC answer. Darn. That's life. And then separately saying, could we talk about how inconsistent these MAGA folks are?
Right? J.D. Mandel.
And I'm being driven crazy by the soundboard. And I think it's an important time for us to remember just how word salady and brain mishmash Trump will get. So here's Abby Phillip reporting on it. Then we'll look at the CNN table debate.
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is facing a wave of criticism for this foreign policy flub at the Munich Security Conference.
Would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is a, this is, of course, a very long-standing policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point. And we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation and for that question to even arise.
So you go about 20 seconds or something of stalling. Let's not overblow how catastrophic that is. Because you literally have right-wing headlines and statements saying this is the end of her presidential ambitions. this. She said, oh, a bunch of times. Awkward. Okay. They described it as completely not understanding the issue. But once she got to an answer, she clearly was nervous or something about addressing the question, because it is a complicated one, because the U.S. has taken the posture of being like, don't do it, but we're not going to tell you what we will do if you do. Right? And then Biden came out and was like, we're going to fuck you up. And I was like, whoa, no, hey, Joe, you're not supposed to say that. He was like, that's right, our military get involved. We're gonna kick Xi Jinping in the... And so in Hunter's Biden, we're going to kick Xi Jinping's Biden.
China!
But normally you have this kind of strategic ambiguity. And so it's a tough thing to answer because you're not really supposed to say specifically what we would do, but you're just kind of like, don't do it, China, it'll be bad. And she ultimately got to what is a fine answer for a politician to give, which is hopefully through economic and international agreements and stances, we will discourage China from doing such things. Hopefully the actions we take diplomatically will prevent that question from ever coming up. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't answer it, but that's also what politicians do. Okay. But the obviously made the answer feel a little bit like a botch. But please, if you are MAGA, do not tell me, whether even you're watching this and you wouldn't think AOC would be a good candidate for this office or that office or whatever. That's not even what I'm getting at right here. Just really, let's think of the logic here. If you're saying a politician's qualifications come down to giving bad answers like that or having brain farts, oh, baby, let's talk.
It should come as no surprise, MAGA is having a field day with this one.
Move over, Kamala. AOC just cooked up her own signature word salad on the global stage.
She was taking her 2028 bike out for a spin. She hit the embankment. She flipped head over heels and went all the way down the mountain. It's her fault.
After the word salad, AOC froze like a deer in headlights.
To quote Billy Madison, everyone in this room is now dumber because of that answer. Thank you, AOC.
A flub for AOC, but the question is also, what happens when the president, the actual president of the United States, does very similar things on the world stage? Listen.
I watch our police and our firemen down in 7-Eleven, down at the World Trade Center. When I told them about Iceland, they loved me. Our stock market took the first dip yesterday because of Iceland. Shifting production to Thailand and to Vietnam.
I went to Thailand and I said their thighs aren't even that good, a little bit chubby.
Because of Iceland. Shifting production to Thailand and to Vietnam. I saw words that was unsolvable. Azerbaijan and Albania. Miami has been a haven for those fleeing communist tyranny in South Africa. Nambia's health system is increasingly self-sufficient.
Yes, Nambia. Woo! I solved the war between Nambia and Bambia, which is where the deer comes from. Azerbaijan and Albania were fighting, and I said, cut it out. And then I looked over at Nambia and Bambia, and I said, quit it. Gotta settle. And they settled.
Nambia's health system is increasingly self-sufficient. We all know the great Prime Minister of the UK, and we just signed a document. This is, sorry about that. We just signed it, and it's done. And so we have our trade agreement with the European Union.
So, look, I'll give you that AOC probably should have been more ready for that question, but are we going to really pretend that the actual president of the United States has not made...
Okay, so then I saw Mediaite, which, I cite a lot. I think that it's a really good outlet. It's nice how they do clips, but I saw they did a story that was called Abby Phillip Bends Over Backwards to Whitewash AOC Gaffe in Hacky Partisan Hit Job. And I was like, hey, chill, Isaac, who wrote this op-ed. Maybe she could have spent a little longer on the AOC gaffe, but what are we doing here? we're going to let the Benny Johnsons of the world, we're going to go, you're right, Benny. She should never be in public again. She doesn't know anything. Whenever
Benny?
He goes, I remember after Trump's, it was either his, one of his speeches, I can't remember which speech, but Trump did a speech, incoherent, saying a bunch of random rambles, and it ended, and it cut to Benny, and he was like, this was one of the most intelligent and amazing and inspiring and coherent and brilliant and shockingly, foundationally powerful speeches ever given since Lincoln. And it was like, what the hell? So yeah, I think it's fair for Abby, who's hosting a show where people like debate, to go, let's just consistency check for a second here, because if we're gonna do this is the same thing that happened during the Kamala campaign. I agree. Sometimes you would get asked a question and it'd be like, hey, what are you gonna do on education? And she would say,
you think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
No, she would say, I think that education is, from the standpoint of the foundation of America, the people, the kids that I've met, I've been to different states and I've met kids who tell me, they say, and I grew up in a school where I would talk to the kids who would make a lot of statements about their ambitions and their dreams and their aspirations. And when I think about America and I look in the eyes and you're like, okay, what? But she would do one of those and Fox News would be like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And then Trump would go 10 times more incoherent, not a peep. So I actually do think that matters, because we can go, that was a bad answer, that was the worst salad. But because we're able to acknowledge reality, but they will never acknowledge whenever Trump botches a bazillion answers. So you saw the compilation there. You want to talk about, you want to do word sounds? You want to do word sounds? You want to do word sounds? Let's do word sounds. Benny, review this. Tell me how this was. Yes, we're going back to it. It was a while ago, but I haven't watched this in a very long time. Let's see.
Third, meaningful change. If you win in November, can you commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable? And what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Okay, because it cut out, the question was, what specific piece of legislation on childcare affordability will you advance? That's a very clear question. Way simpler than what should the U.S. posture be militarily on Taiwan. Much simpler. What are you going to do on childcare? I'm going to introduce a bill that subsidizes childcare so that everyone has an opportunity for affordable childcare. Fine. We're going to implement a universal childcare program for all Americans who make less than X dollars per year. Easy. Done. Not a matter of war. Let's see Trump's answer. What piece of legislation on childcare? Let's listen.
Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. I was somebody, we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that, because look, childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But
in other countries, they just let the kids fend for themselves.
There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all of the other things that are going on in our country. Because I have to stay with childcare. I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. We're going to be getting in trillions of dollars, and as much as childcare is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people.
So you want to, fine. We don't have to do, let's compare every time. I can look just at that answer and go, a lot of her Munich appearance, she gave really interesting answers on a lot of different questions. And that one she botched. She botched it. In politics, you don't want to get stuck saying, for 2 minutes. Not 2 minutes, 20 seconds. See, I had a flub for 20 seconds. But you also cannot take seriously people who pretend like that should be the end of her political career, and they support the guy who hasn't spoken coherent English since ever.
You know, I do the weave.
And definitely not in the last decade. So I do think it's important to check people's consistency on that. His answer to what legislation would you introduce on childcare was repeating the word numbers a lot, talking about how it's a small number, but it's a big number, but compared to bigger numbers, it's a small number. And essentially the essence of his answer with a bunch of words that didn't connect well at all was, don't worry about it. That was 2 minutes for him to go, hey, babe, don't worry about it, little lady. That's what he was really trying to say. And you will see with a straight face the Benny Johnsons of the world, the Ben Shapiro's of the world, play a clip like that and go, wow, the way that he just comprehensively laid out a childcare proposal is unbelievable. But here's an example of one of the answers that I thought was really interesting from her.
The United States right now is experiencing a political pendulum, and depending really, the party that is seen most as betraying the working class tends to be the governing party in this moment right now. That happens to be the Republican majority. But really, what we are seeing over the last 8 years, I think, has been a growing recognition that of those past errors that go back, that include military interventionism in the Iraq War, that include a recognition of NAFTA as a failed policy for many rural and working class communities. And now I think we are moving in this direction of increased recognition that we have to have a working class centered politics if we are going to succeed, and also if we are going to stave off the scourges of authoritarianism, which also provides political siren calls to allure people into finding scapegoats to blame for rising economic inequality, both domestically and globally.
So the point there being, in a crisis of authoritarianism, some might try to lie to you and tell you, in fending off authoritarianism, you have to put on pause economic justice, if you want to call it that, or combating the economic inequality. That we don't have time for that right now. There's these pressing authoritarian concerns, which there are, obviously. Her point being, one of the ways you take the air out of the sails of the authoritarians is to address the economic inequality. The working class angst fuels the type of authoritarian messaging that can exploit that angst. When people so desperately want an answer for why the system is rigged against them, often a strongman coming in and saying, I can fix it alone, sounds appealing. And connecting the economic to the political, the crisis of our political system connected to the crisis of our economic system, is a very profound and important point for people to understand. And I can tell you, even that answer wasn't perfect. I would have worded it a little bit differently. But, and you heard me kind of like I reiterated it a little bit in a little bit different way, but the point she's making was really crucial. And I know that if Trump ever tried to explain that point, you would just hear him say numbers a bunch of over and over again. How is it that we can prevent the degradation of our democratic institutions by uplifting the working class and ameliorating their economic concerns? Well, when you see what we're bringing in, so many numbers of numbers within. Shut up.
I love cows.
And then you saw Megyn Kelly say in response to AOC, actually, you spat and sputtered and humiliated yourself, but okay. To which Chris Cuomo, who I think Chris is getting the Beasley bug. What does that mean? There's a virus right now. There's an epidemic of people getting the Beasley bug. And that is people having an awakening that says, oh my gosh, I was wrong about either both siding too much or supporting MAGA. So in the case of Andrew Schultz, bad case of the Beasley bug. He's like, wait, Trump lied. He's terrible. Sean Ryan, he's realizing it. This sounds like I used to support Trump whenever I word it that way. I've always had the Beasley bug. This doesn't work well. I was going to be cute, but it didn't make much sense. Point is, a lot of people are waking up to the fact that they were lied to by Trump, and now they're shifting toward our viewpoints. Chris Cuomo was never a supporter of Trump, but like for a second there was doing way too much. The problem is equally both. When it's like, well, I mean, they kind of have all the power. They're doing all the bad stuff, so. But now I've seen him on a roll of good takes like this. He said AOC is young and flawed, but there's a reason she would stomp out Kelly like a roach in any poll. Standing for something is better than being about nothing but hate. Remember, she was paid to leave NBC. No one was sad. Talking about Megyn Kelly. And that is another win for Cuomo. And that's not just because I'm going, anytime he says something on the liberal side, I like it. He's actually identifying something very profound. Because some people will see whether it be AOC's youth, or if they don't think that her communication nails it enough, or if they think that she's advocated for policies they believe are naive or something. Sometimes they'll question why she gets so much support if they have perception concerns or whatever around her. And he kind of nails it there, which is if you have those feelings and you're not understanding why someone like her would be so much more popular than Megyn Kelly among the general electorate, not that Megyn Kelly's running for office, but just to do the thought experiment, is because for whatever her flaws are, you can tell she actually believes in something and cares about something. And Megyn Kelly just seems to be a grifter chasing views. Quickly want to thank Germs Rosalina. I always said that. Oh, no, Rosalina, who sent 5 gifted memberships, actually. That's awesome. The Turtles Rocks became a member. Now you get the bonus show. Guys, okay. I never plug the bonus show. But let me just tell you, you are, and this is not like you have to get this t-shirt. No. I'm telling you, you are missing out. You should feel FOMO. If you haven't yet on YouTube, click the join button and become a member. If you're one of those people who's like, sometimes I need a little bit of a break from Iran saying that they're going to take out a U.S. warship, and Trump's like, woohoo, let's do it, shooey. Politics. But you want a little bit of politics, but then sometimes you just want to hear something that makes you just have fun. That's it. And it goes completely all over the place. And I think that you need it. So do that for sure. Alexis, click the join button as well and became a member. It's pretty crazy. It is pretty crazy how small of a group you become a part of. You just became a part of, what is it, 0.00001% of the audience. It's like this eensy little group. Now, does that break my heart a little bit that less people don't become a member of the rather large audience that watches and hears me say that? Yeah, that does kind of break my heart, but I understand it. And I'm fine doing as much free content as is needed for your appetite. That's the show. Thank you all so much for listening. Podcast listeners, don't forget to rate and review. That would be very helpful. Much love. Talk to you all next time.